In this video, we are exploring the chilling legend of the Qalupalik, a terrifying creature from Inuit folklore that preys on children who wander too close to the freezing water. We will uncover the monster's grotesque anatomy, its sinister hunting methods, and the dark fate of those it pulls into the abyss. But make sure to stick around until the end, because we'll also reveal the legendary story of a young orphan who came face to face with this ancient beast and used a brilliant trick to outsmart it. You won't want to miss how to survive an Arctic nightmare. Let's dive in. Imagine a world defined by its extremes. A place where the wind howls with a biting fury, where the landscape is an endless, blinding expanse of white, and where the winter plunges the earth into months of perpetual darkness. This is the global Arctic, a breathtakingly beautiful but profoundly unforgiving environment. To survive here requires more than just physical endurance. It requires a deep, ancestral understanding of nature's hidden dangers. For the Inuit communities who have called this frozen tundra home for thousands of years, the ice is both a highway and a hunting ground, a giver of life and a silent killer. But there is a specific terror reserved for the edges of this world, where the solid, comforting ice fractures and meets the dark, freezing depths of the Arctic Ocean stand near the shoreline, where the ice pans gently bob and grind against one another. And you might hear it. Not the wind, not the shifting of the glaciers. A low, rhythmic tapping echoing from beneath the frozen surface. Then, a faint, ethereal hum, a melody that sounds almost like a mother's lullaby, drifting up through the icy water. If you hear this sound, do not look down. Do not step closer to the edge. Run, because that hum belongs to one of the most terrifying creatures in the pantheon of Inuit mythology. It is the sound of the Qalupalik, an ancient, predatory spirit of the deep, waiting patiently in the freezing darkness to snatch away anyone foolish enough to wander too close to the water. This is not a story of noble gods or beautiful mermaids. This is the story of a nightmare born from necessity. Today, we are going to dive deep beneath the ice to uncover the legend of the Qalupalik. We will explore the anatomy of this grotesque monster, uncover the chilling methods it uses to hunt its prey, hear the legendary tales of those who manage to outsmart it, and discover the profound, life-saving purpose this myth served for generations of Arctic peoples. When we think of humanoid creatures dwelling in the sea, popular culture often brings to mind the enchanting sirens of Greek mythology or the beautiful, tragic mermaids of European folklore. The Qalupalik, however, is a stark and terrifying departure from these romanticized figures. In the harsh reality of the Arctic, there was no room for a monster that seduced. The environment demanded a creature that provoked absolute, instinctual revulsion. According to the oral traditions passed down by Inuit elders, the Qalupalik, sometimes pluralized and spelled as Qalupiliwidis, a grotesque aquatic humanoid. Those who have claimed to glimpse the creature, or have heard the terrifying tales around the glow of a seal oil lamp, describe it as having skin that is a sickly, bruised shade of green. The skin is not smooth like a dolphin's, but scaly, slimy, and covered in repulsive bumps, making it look like a corrupted hybrid of a human and a bottom-dwelling fish. The creature is incredibly well adapted to its freezing liquid domain. Its hands and feet are heavily webbed, allowing it to propel itself through the icy dark currents with terrifying speed, easily outpacing any human attempting to swim or flee. But these webbed appendages are not just for swimming. They end in elongated, razor-sharp claws, perfectly evolved for grasping and holding onto thrashing prey. Some regional variations of the legend even describe the Qalupalik as having spiky fins protruding from its head, back, and torso, further severing any visual connection it might have to humanity. Perhaps one of the most unsettling physical features of the monster is its hair. The Qalupalik is almost always described as having incredibly long, dark, wildly tangled hair that floats around its face like a mass of rotting seaweed. Some stories suggest that the creature's hair is deeply tied to its dark magic and its sinister dietary habits. But it is not just the sight of the Qalupalik that induces terror. It is the smell. Long before you see the green skin or the reaching claws, you might be hit by a foul, nauseating stench. It is the overwhelming smell of sulfur, a rotting egg-like odor that rises from the cracks in the ice, serving as a grim olfactory warning that the monster is lurking right beneath your feet. Yet, the most psychologically devastating aspect of the Qalupalik's appearance is not its claws or its scales, but what it wears. The creature is predominantly described in a feminine manner, and it is famously known for wearing an amautik. In Inuit culture, the amautik is a traditional, beautifully crafted parka worn by women, featuring a large, bridden pouch on the back. For thousands of years, mothers have used the amautik to carry their infants, keeping them nestled against their skin, safe, warm, and protected from the brutal Arctic cold. It is the ultimate symbol of maternal love, warmth, and the continuation of life. The Qalupalik twists this beautiful symbol into an instrument of horror. Some legends say the creature's amautik is woven from the feathers of the eider duck, a bird famous for its incredibly warm down. But the monster does not use this pouch to nurture its own offspring. Instead, the Qalupalik uses the amautik as a dark, suffocating prison. When it snatches a child from the ice, it forces the screaming victim deep into the pouch of the amautik, sealing them away as it dives back into the freezing abyss. It is a grotesque subversion of motherhood, turning a symbol of ultimate safety into a vehicle of death and abduction. A predator is only as successful as its hunting strategy, and the Qalupalik is a master of psychological manipulation. It does not blindly chase its prey across the snow. It knows that humans, especially adult hunters, are dangerous and well-armed. Instead, the Qalupalik targets the most vulnerable, the most curious, and the most disobedient members of the community, the children. The creature's hunting grounds are the unpredictable transition zones between safety and death, the shorelines, the cracks in the sea ice, and the floating ice pans. Hopping between floating chunks of ice is a long-standing, thrilling, and incredibly dangerous game played by adventurous children in the Arctic. The Qalupalik relies on this youthful bravery and curiosity. When the monster senses vibrations on the ice above, it begins its hunt. Rather than violently bursting through the surface, which might give the victim time to run, the Qalupalik employs a terrifying acoustic lure. It begins to hum. This is not a monstrous roar, but a captivating, ethereal vibration that resonates through the solid ice and into the frigid air. The hum is specifically designed to mimic the comforting sounds of a human voice, sparking the curiosity of a wandering child. If the humming does not work, the beast will resort to tapping. It will swim just beneath the surface of the frozen sea, rhythmically knocking its long, sharp claws against the underside of the ice. Tap, tap, tap. A child, hearing the sound, might step away from the safety of the solid shore, moving closer to a thin patch or an open breathing hole to peer into the dark water, wondering what is making that noise. This is exactly what the creature wants. The moment the child's shadow falls over the thin ice or the open water, the trap is sprung. The Qalupalik bursts from the water with explosive force, its webbed, clawed hands locking around the child's ankles. In a fraction of a second, the victim is pulled off their feet, shoved violently into the feather-lined amautik, and dragged down into the suffocating, freezing blackness of the ocean, leaving nothing behind but the empty, howling wind. Some localized legends even add another layer of terror, claiming that the Qalupalik possesses a specialized flipper capable of emitting a shrill, paralyzing shriek. Upon hearing this terrible noise, the victim's muscles lock up in sheer terror, rendering them completely incapable of running away or crying out for help before the icy waters consume them. What happens to the children who disappear beneath the waves? Where does the Qalupalik take them, and what is their ultimate fate? The oral traditions vary from region to region, but none of the answers offer any comfort. The first and most brutal theory is one of parasitic consumption. The Qalupalik is not just hungry for flesh, it hungers for vitality. According to these stories, the monster consumes the children, feeding specifically on their youthful, innocent energy. This is how the creature maintains its own twisted immortality. By draining the life force of the young, the Qalupalik ensures that it remains strong, preserving its unnatural life and fueling the growth of its endless, flowing hair. In this version of the myth, the creature is a parasite that literally feeds on the future of the Inuit community. But there is a second theory, one that exploits our deepest psychological fears of isolation, claustrophobia, and the unknown. Some legends insist that the Qalupalik does not eat the children at all. Instead, it carries them deep into the labyrinthine underwater ice caves, far beneath the frozen ocean where no sunlight has ever reached, and no human rescue party could ever find them. Once in these hidden lairs, the monster uses dark magic to place the abducted children under a powerful, unbreakable sleeping spell. The children are not dead, but they are forever trapped in a frozen state of suspended animation, hidden away for eternity in the dark. They become the monster's eternal companions, a horrific collection of sleeping souls stolen from the world of the living. For many, the idea of being trapped alive forever in the silent, freezing darkness is a fate far more terrifying than sudden death. While the Qalupalik is painted as a nearly unstoppable force of nature, the rich tapestry of Inuit folklore is not without hope. The stories are not meant to foster absolute despair, but to teach resilience, quick thinking, and the triumph of the human mind over brute force. One of the most famous and beloved stories regarding this creature perfectly illustrates this point: the tale of the orphan. In traditional Inuit communities, an orphan was often a marginalized figure, lacking the protection and resources of a strong, extended family. Yet in the folklore, the orphan frequently emerges as the unexpected hero, using profound wit to overcome seemingly impossible odds. The story, as recorded by modern Inuit storyteller Elisha Qalupalik and featured in beautifully illustrated books by Inhabit Media, goes like this. A young, destitute orphan boy is wandering alone near the edge of the sea ice. His clothes are tattered, and his traditional sealskin boots, known as kamik, are so worn out that they are full of holes. He wanders too close to a crack in the ice, and suddenly the terrifying Qalupalik emerges from the water, ready to snatch him away. The boy is small, weak, and completely defenseless. He cannot outrun the monster, and he certainly cannot fight it. But the boy is incredibly clever. As the monster reaches for him, the boy thrusts his feet forward. Because his boots are so heavily damaged, his bare toes are poking out through the holes. The Qalupalik, having lived its entire life in the freezing depths and only seeing humans bundled in thick furs, has never seen bare human toes before. The boy begins to wiggle his toes furiously. He looks the terrifying monster right in the eye and warns it to stay back. He tells the Qalupalik that these strange, wriggling creatures protruding from his boots are fierce, flesh-eating monsters with a specific appetite for Qalupaliks, and they are incredibly hungry. The beast, despite its size, its claws, and its magical abilities, is struck with absolute terror at the sight of the unknown. Believing the boy's lie, the monster cowers in fear and violently throws itself back into the ocean, swimming away as fast as it can. The boy returns to his village a hero, cheered on by his friends. This story is a masterclass in psychological empowerment. It teaches children that no matter how big, ancient, or terrifying an opponent might be, they always have a weakness. It proves that fear of the unknown affects monsters just as much as it affects humans, and that intelligence, adaptability, and courage are the greatest weapons a person can possess. To truly understand the Qalupalik, we must step back from the horror of the myth and look at the environment that created it. Why did the Inuit people invent such a terrifying, sleep-stealing, child-eating monster? The answer lies in the unforgiving reality of Arctic survival. Inuit folklore is deeply functional. It is an educational tool masquerading as entertainment. The Arctic Ocean is treacherous. The sea ice is constantly shifting, cracking, and thinning. Hypothermia can kill a human in minutes, and the currents beneath the ice are strong enough to drag a grown man away instantly. For a small child, the ice edge is a literal death trap. But how do you explain the complex physics of thin ice, ocean currents, and thermal shock to a toddler? You can't. But you can tell them about a green, scaly monster with long claws that hides under the ice, waiting to stuff disobedient children into its dark pouch. The Qalupalik is the ultimate utilitarian bogeyman. It is a physical anthropomorphic manifestation of the dangers of the sea. Parents and elders use this terrifying legend as a crucial pedagogical tool to enforce spatial boundaries and keep their children safe. By instilling a healthy, paralyzing fear of the Qalupalik, parents drastically lowered the statistical probability that their children would wander off alone or play near the dangerous open water. In this light, the monster is not a creature of evil, but a bizarre guardian angel. The myth of the Qalupalik undoubtedly saved countless young lives across the centuries, keeping children away from the thin ice by making the unknown depths too terrifying to approach. Today, the world is changing at an unprecedented pace. The climate is warming, the ice is behaving differently, and modern technology has reached the farthest corners of the Arctic. Yet, the legend of the Qalupalik refuses to fade into the past. Instead, it has evolved. Transitioning from whispered warnings in an igloo to a prominent figure in global pop culture, literature, and digital media, indigenous authors, artists, and game developers are reclaiming their folklore, using it to educate the world and preserve their cultural heritage. The Qalupalik has become a star in acclaimed children's literature, guaranteed to give a new generation a thrilling scare. Books like Robert Munsch and Michael Kusugak's A Promise is a Promise, Elisha Killabuck's The Qalupalik, and Neil Christopher's The Orphan and the Qalupalik have codified these oral histories into beautifully illustrated pages. The graphic novel Putuguk and Kuplu and the Qalupalik brings the myth into a contemporary setting, showing how the legend survives in modern Inuit villages. But perhaps the most fascinating evolution of the Qalupalik is its leap into the digital realm. The award-winning interactive fiction game Beneath Flows, developed by Bravemule in collaboration with the Nunavut-based studio Pinguac, puts players directly into the shoes of a child from 1962 trying to evade the monster. The game brilliantly uses the structure of digital storytelling to emulate the cadence and rhythm of a traditional Inuit oral storyteller. Pinguac even ventured into the survival horror genre, conceptualizing a 3D game titled simply Qalupalik. In this harrowing experience, the player must jump across shifting ice blocks in the dark. Because the monster is hidden underwater, players cannot see it coming. Instead, the game uses traditional Inuit throat singing as an acoustic warning system. As the monster gets closer, the throat singing grows faster and more intense, inducing absolute panic as the player desperately tries to escape the unseen terror below. The Qalupalik is a masterpiece of mythological engineering. It is a creature born from the collision of human vulnerability and the unforgiving power of the natural world. It is a testament to the brilliance of the Inuit ancestors, who understood that the best way to protect their children from the invisible, silent dangers of the Arctic Ocean was to give that danger a face, a voice, and a set of razor-sharp claws. So, the next time you find yourself near the freezing ocean or walking across a frozen lake in the dead of winter, take a moment to listen. If you hear the ice shifting, it might just be the wind. But if you hear a rhythmic tap 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 or a soft melodic hum rising from the black water beneath your feet, step back from the edge. The ice belongs to the Qalupalik, and she is always waiting.